Hey guys, how are you? Hello, can you guys hear me? My internet is really lagging. Sorry guys, but my internet's lagging, so I don't know how well this is going to go tonight. You guys just need to let me know if you can understand me. Let me know if it's lagging. I don't know what's going on with it. My internet provider is doing a whole bunch of upgrades, and I think that this is the first time this has ever done this to me, so I don't know what's going on here, but I hope you guys can hear me. Hey, Tech Deaf. Good to see you. Hey, Maria, my bestie. Glad to have you here. AJ, welcome. Thank you so much for being here. Hey, Sling and Lead. How are you? Always good to see you. Hey, Country Girl. I'm so glad you guys decided to join tonight. Hi, Jerry. Is it pronounced Jerry? In Gargiola? Welcome. It's good to see you. Good, AJ. Thank you. I'm glad. Because things are moving quite slowly here, it looks like, for me. But as long as the audio's good, I'm not going to worry about it. I couldn't, it wasn't playing my intro. It wasn't, I don't know. It was just, there's just been a lot of weird stuff going on when I was working on it. So, hey, JW28, it's good to have you here. So, I'm going to wait just a couple minutes for people to kind of come in and then we can get started. One of the things that I wanted to talk about tonight is the sins of the father, referencing Tony Klein, of course, and how Kegan has sort of said law enforcement is definitely honed in on him. So I thought that we would discuss that a little bit.
I also want to go over again about how social media can have effect on cases and how we have to be careful. I thought we would talk a little bit about some of the things. Hey, who's your girl? Some of the things that have happened this week in the case online on social media. Just a few things. Of course, as you guys know, I'm not here to bash content creators or other channels. I won't do that, but I will bring up things that I think are not happening that for the good of the case. Hey, DMG Soul Togetherness. It's really good to see you. How are things over there in Scotland? Let's see. Hey. Yeah, country girl. We like having you here as well. Hey, Nick Hamilton. Always good to see you. Thanks for joining us. AJ's recovering from all the floods that they had down there in Australia. And we're really lucky to have her here because it's been kind of rough, I think, for them down there. So, guys, just remember that the way that I like my chat to go is everybody's respectful of each other. I don't mind people sharing opinions and things like that in the chat, but just make sure that you're being respectful to one another. We all have a voice. We all want to be heard, and we just want to do it with kindness, okay? I certainly appreciate all of you being here. So let's just kind of get into it, I think. Let's see. Let's start out. I think I'm going to start out talking a little bit about the whole social media stuff before we jump in with the Tony Klein conversation. But I was doing some research this afternoon for a couple of other cases that I'm going to be starting covering really soon. And so I wanted, I found this as I was doing that, and I thought it was really important that we kind of touch on it again and talk about it. So I think you guys are all aware about how social media has affected in an enormous way our lives and how it impacts us on a daily basis. I've often noticed that if I go out with friends, whether it be to eat or if we're at a bar or wherever we are, even a sporting event, everyone has their phones in their face. And everybody's hooked up to social media. We've all got friends we want to talk to. Sometimes we're listening to podcasts. We may be watching YouTube. We may be reading Reddit, on Facebook, Instagram. There's just so much out there. Most people get their news from their phones. It's just become a way of life, basically, for all of us. And for me, and what I've noticed and how I feel about social media, it's almost become an alternate universe in some ways for people to pretend to be people that they wanted to be in life but aren't. People can filter out and add what they want people to see or what they want people to believe about them. It's just a way for people to basically act and do whatever they want and say and not be held responsible or accountable for their words or their actions. And I think it's become a huge problem in our world, and especially in our country, and especially with our children. I think we've seen a huge problem with bullying, and I think that comes up with social media because people just feel that they can bully people, and it's really easy to hide behind keyboards and screens on social media and say and do whatever you want, and like I said, not be held accountable. Um, I think the problems start happening when people take things from social media and things that happen on social media and start bringing it into their real world. Um, because they think that those actions and words on social media somehow give them power. Um, Sometimes that results in suicides. Sometimes it results in other crimes. Um, and in some cases, even murder. So I think, um, you know, I just think it's really important to mention um, how social media can play a role in crime and in crime in general, and that we need to be keeping people or holding people accountable for their actions. Um, so there was one thing that I found that I wanted to talk about. It was an actual um, murder that took place that they associated with social media. I think we've heard some of the cases. They've made movies, obviously, about it, about things as well. But this particular one was a female who actually put herself out on social media and was eventually stalked by someone, and they found her real persona, her real address, and they actually murdered her. And you know, it's really a dangerous place, and I think many of us forget that when we're here. We have friends and family, and we're talking to people, and we're making friends, and we're talking to people every day. And even for us who are full-grown adults, we can lose track of the fact that we may not know who that person is on the other side of the screen and who they are portraying themselves to be. So I just think that we always need to keep that in the forefront of our minds. Um, it's easy to find victims these days. I think the internet makes it a lot more easy to find victims, no matter what that means, whether it's bullying or whether it's manipulating or whatever. Um, and there has been a lot of research done on the effect that social media has on people, and especially our youth. Um, it's brought a lot of benefits to our communities as well. And I think we can't forget that, um, because it does help connect people that who may never have connected in person. The fact that you can talk to someone on the other side of the globe in real time is pretty incredible. I come from a time prior to computers, so I know I've watched all of this as it's happened in real time, and it's pretty incredible to think of where we were back in the 70s and where we are now. Um, there's a lot of things about the internet that I love, and there's a hey, why? Good to see you. There's a lot of things about the internet that I despise. So, I think that probably is, as is with a lot of us as well. Um, so when we talk about this poor woman that put herself out there, she advertised something for sale. And that's how that all got started. And she answered her ad for this. She began talking with them. And this person, for whatever reason, was driven to murder her. And um, it's a scary thing. I think most of us know that there's these big um, internet sites now for garage sales where in your local community, you can advertise anything for sale and then meet people to pick it up and get your money for it. And a lot of people have them come directly to their home, which I think is extremely risky. But most law enforcement agencies tell you to meet people in a very public, well-lit place, or even at the police station parking lots, because crime is happening. People are figuring out more, I don't know how to put it, brilliant ways, I guess, to commit crimes using the internet. So the other thing I wanted to talk to about with social media is the fact that those of us on social media have platforms, and depending on how fast we grow our platforms, we can reach a large audience and a large population of people. And when we are doing that, whether it be whatever the subjects are that we're following or choosing to share, whatever, it's really, really important that we do that with integrity and honesty. In my opinion, to get on the internet and do anything other than that is just harmful behavior, and you're only hurting people. Some people think it's funny, kind of like, I guess, back in the day when maybe we would have prank phone called someone where we would dial and hang up. But, I just think that this is much more damaging, in my opinion, when you get on social media and you start behaving that way, whether it be doxing. We've talked about that here on this channel. When you call people out on social media and you put their name and their real name, their real address, and give out personal information like that, it's so dangerous. We've seen that in this case with Delphi, and it's extremely concerning because we do still have a killer on the loose. I think some of us forget that sometimes, even though we know it in our heads, we forget what that means. And we don't want to make people to be more vulnerable, I guess, is what I'm saying. There's no limits. People can take things on social media to the extreme, and I think it is extremely destructive, country girl, to our children. She talks about there are so many destructive things she feels for children that aren't criminal on social media, and it breaks our heart. I agree with you on that. And I think that parents need to be much more aware of what children are doing on social media. I think we actually give our children the access to social media sometimes way too young, which opens them up to all kinds of things. So I really feel that we need to be careful about that. And it's one of the things that I've always felt was just really deeply important, and it's not talked about enough. So I wanted to just talk, like I said, talk about that a little bit tonight. And, you know, obviously with live streaming and people like what I'm doing right now, where we're talking to you live right in the moment, you have a little bit more control of what's going on than you do if you're not doing that. But we always have to have monitoring it, in my opinion. I think when the idea of social media was created, it was all safe to assume they thought it was just going to be a wonderful thing, and it was going to grow businesses. It was going to make families be able to stay in touch around the globe. It was going to bring families and friends closer together. It was going to be an entertainment vehicle for people and all of those things. And I don't think they thought about the dark side of the internet and the dark side of social media. And if anything else, I think we have seen that now in this case. I think the biggest thing that one of the biggest takeaways will be from this case is how social media played such a huge part in it. Thank you, country girl. You're so sweet. And it upsets me. People spend hours and hours and hours online, and sometimes they become obsessive, they become self-absorbed, and it even becomes an addiction to them. Um, with all of that said, a lot of these apps and social sites that we use have very lax security. It just, we found that out with 9/11. Terrorists were using our internet against us. It still happens today regarding that. And I think that, after 9/11, we got a little bit smarter, and they're monitoring it, but it's still a problem. And now we find out that with the introduction of the internet, child sexual abuse material is rampant. And these pedophiles and these sick individuals are everywhere on the web. They're out there in chat rooms talking with our kids. They're everywhere. It's just crazy. They're making the product, they're distributing the product, they're sharing it with others, and victimizing these kids over and over again every time they do that. So, I just think that we have to be voices for change. And I think we need to be demanding that of our elected officials wherever we live. What people don't understand is the federal government can step in and do so much, but this is happening at home in our cities. And we need to go to our city governments and demand that they do things to help this situation, and our local governments. Laws that help us immediately tend to happen at home and in our state governments. So I really think that, I would urge everyone to look into that and see what you can do on your local level when it comes to this, and trying to make our children safer. And, it's changed how we live our lives. There's no doubt about it. And there's been a lot of good, but there is definitely a ton of bad. The cyber stalking that's gone on, and the invasion of people's privacy is crazy. And I don't believe that it's any less dangerous to cyber stalk someone than it is to stalk them in real life, in real time. I believe that it's just as dangerous to do the cyber stalking. And when they do that, they put a fear into the victim. They constantly make them worried about their safety. And when your privacy like that is invaded, it just takes a piece of you. And it's hard to get that back. And the research that I was looking at today said cyber stalking is extremely rare among strangers. It usually happens more common to people by someone they know. But it's an extremely difficult crime to prove, because you don't really know anything's going on until it has become a huge problem. And with all of that being said, then we go back to victim blaming, and people start blaming victims for being stalked or for being murdered, or having crimes happen to them. And victim blaming is a real problem in our country. It's a real problem in this case. I can't believe people with everything that we know today, and I'm not trying to be the preacher from the pulpit tonight, you guys, but this last week has been tough on me with this case. I can tell you there has been a lot of things that have kind of triggered me, and I have been trying to deal with that in a positive way, but I've not had a good couple of days with it. And I just want to say, you know, victim blaming hurts people. It hurts the people left behind for sure. When you start saying things that are hurtful to that can be hurtful to these families, these are things that they can't stop. It's out there on social media, and there's no way they can control that narrative. The only people that control it are the people that are allowing it to happen on their channels, on their subreddits, on their Facebook groups, wherever that platform is where it's happening, and they're giving those people voices. Those are the only people that can truly shut it down. And it's a real problem. And to me, to people are like, well, no, that's censorship. If you don't allow people to say this or to say that, I'm not censoring anyone. They are welcome to start their own channel or their own subreddit or their own Facebook group and say whatever they want. But on everyone else's, we need to shut it down, because it's really important to not hurt these families anymore. So with that, I'm going to just bring up a little bit of what's gone on this week in this case. We had a group of YouTubers come out with some breaking news. I don't remember now exactly what day, if it was Wednesday or Thursday, but True Crime Maria and I happened to be on the phone together when it happened. And she was like, oh my God, Kristen, there's some breaking news. And we were like, what? In the case? What could that possibly be? And when we get there and we start looking at all this, it happens to be this photographs that's going around everywhere of Cheyenne took that day. And all these things are being said about who's under the bridge and what they see under the bridge. And this is a huge thing. And I'm like, it got really, really out of hand fast. And I'm glad that they turned it into law enforcement and said, hey, this is what we think we see. This is what we think we found, and be done with it. But to keep going over it and act like what they've found is going to break this case wide open, stop and think about it. Even if that is real and there are real people underneath that bridge, nobody knows who they are. You can't see who they are. So how is that going to even possibly come close to helping solve anything in this case? The only thing it does is create more muck, in my opinion. And so it's just like, I don't know. I really don't know what's up with that, and why that all transpired. But I just, like I said, I'm not here to bash people. I really don't. But I thought that was a very hurtful thing to do this week. They had pictures where they said that Libby was underneath the bridge, her body, and they drew this green stuff around her face. And it was just heartbreaking to me to see that, because I can just imagine what that does to the families when they see that kind of stuff. And it's just, in my opinion, when you put breaking news on a video that you're uploading like that regarding Delphi, it's for clickbait only. It is to get views. It's to get people to come to your lives and to see what you've got that nobody else may have. And I'm just like, breaking news is going to come from law enforcement in this case. It is not going to be coming from us, the YouTube creators. And I just think that is really in poor taste. Hey, Jennifer, thank you so much for coming, dear. It's good to see you. So I'm not going to beat a dead horse. I just want you to know, and it is out there. You guys can find it. It's not hard to find them. I'm not going to mention the people. I'm not even going to mention the channels. I just want you to know that that's the kind of behavior that really upsets me. For those of you that aren't aware, I did have the murder sheet on Friday on my channel on live, and I interviewed them, and we talked about the interview with Kegan that was done by HLN, and we went over that document, and we just talked about all the different things that Kegan said in the document and how everything is pointing at Tony Klein. It looks like the law enforcement has been on him for quite a long time. And I think they're doing all sorts of different tactics or whatever to put pressure on him. And it's just, to me, it's a good thing. But what I don't understand is when law enforcement is actually pointing us in a direction and saying, here, this is what we've got, and this is where we're going. And everybody else says, well, we're not going to talk about that. We're not going to talk about the Kleins. We're going to talk about this person that's never been mentioned, or we're going to talk about this person that law enforcement has never told us about. It's ridiculous is what it is. It's absolutely heartbreaking and ridiculous. I'm just tired of people online thinking they know more than the police and pretending they know more than the police. Kevin said it well, Kevin Greenlee from the Murder Sheet on Friday on my show. And he said, this is not a novel, and this is not a game. This is real life. These are real people. They're real people who died, and there's real families that are suffering. And it breaks my heart when I see this kind of stuff. And people running around pretending like they have all these secrets, but they can't tell anybody. That upsets me too. Matt Sullivan says he's turned over a new leaf, and he's not going to be doing that anymore. Running around and pretending like he knows all of these inside things that he and Greeno used to pretend to know. And that's a good thing. I hope he sticks to that because, like I said, if anybody should get inside information in this case, it should be the families first. If anybody thinks that they're deserving to know insider information in this case, it is Mike Patty, Becky Patty, Kelsey German, Derek German, Carrie Timmons, Anna Williams, and the Williams family. Does anybody in my chat right now disagree with that statement? Because this is about them. It's not about us. And so, I'm just out there to say it's all fine and good. We're supposed to be covering the case, not trying to solve it. I had a reason last week to have to speak to law enforcement down in Kentucky. And I was speaking with the law enforcement down there, and I was talking about, they knew I was a YouTuber, and I was talking to them, and I said, yeah, I have a true crime channel, and we talked a little bit about that. And he said, you do realize that the internet has helped to solve crimes before. And I said, yes, I completely and absolutely understand that. But I doubt very seriously that one of us here on YouTube is going to crack this case open. And that's kind of where I'm going with it. I think that there is a faction of people that do believe that they can or will. So we can get off of that and start talking a little bit more about Kegan and Tony. One of the things that I wanted to talk about with the reason that I titled my live stream as Sins of the Father I kind of feel like this because we've got Kegan sitting in jail, and he's been sitting in jail since August of 2020. And in a few months, it'll be 2 years that he's been sitting in jail and has had no resolution of his case. And, I'm like, why? What's going on um, that this is happening? And I agree with you, DMG. I do think it's a lot. A lot has to do with ego. I most certainly do. And so anyway, we all want the same thing in this case. Every single one of us in here in this chat right now and that are in here watching me, we all want Bridge Guy caught. We want him to face the music. We want justice for the girls. It's really coming. I believe that Doug Carter told us last month they're on the right track, and they are going to be seeing him really soon. And I think that there are a lot of good things happening behind the scenes. When I spoke to Anya and Kevin from the Murder Sheet, they gave me just a little bit of an insight of what's coming on Tuesday and then the following Tuesday. And, Anya told me backstage before I brought them on, she just told me, she said, Kristen, that stuff is really, really hard to read. It's really hard to talk about. And I think it's going to be quite shocking. Child sexual abuse material is never something that's easy to talk about or to read about for most of us, I think. And so who in the house had access and was actually doing this? Was it Kegan? Was it Tony? Was it both of them? Were they sharing the Anthony Schatz profile with other people? All of those things are possible. And I think that it's quite probable true because they have definitely honed in on them. And it's really apparent that is who they are looking at. Now, they took off the weight and the height from the FBI posters and the wanted posters. And I'm like, everybody's been emailing me about why. It's just like, I think what it feels like to me is that we have a big announcement, I think, that's probably going to be forthcoming soon, and we all should be prepared for whatever that might be. The lack of solid, concrete evidence with what we've been given with the interviews and stuff, because we know that Kegan lies. We know that he lies a lot. So my questions when I read what he's been asked and how he answered things was, is he telling us the truth in those interviews? Or is he saying things that he just wants other people to hear? He came really close to pointing his finger completely at his dad in that interview, but then he put the brakes on and wouldn't give him the complete alibi. It's just funny to me how, he said, well, dad works third shift and so he couldn't have done it. He was with me, but he didn't say where he was with him, except that the fact that they went to grandma and grandpa's for dinner and watched WWE, which we all know that's not true because we've already established ourselves by digging into that True Crime Maria, she's an excellent investigator. And within minutes of reading that, she's like, they didn't have that on that night. It was on the 12th, which I was floored because I don't follow that genre. So I didn't know, but boy, she knew right off the bat. She told me, well, that's not true. So, I think that that's good that we can get out there and look at that stuff and kind of pick it apart and see what may or may not be truthful. We have a lot of scenarios that things could be that could be happening or happened. And I agree with this health inspector. Everyone does bring some different perspective to this case. And I do think that that's a good thing because we all see things differently, just like witnesses do. Everybody sees something different. We can all look at the same material and take something different away from it. And that, I think, is why it's really good to have different eyes looking at things, looking at evidence in this case. When you always have, they call it a fresh set of eyes. I just think it's a different set of eyes when you have people looking at things differently. Hi, Jamie Hicks. Thank you so much for showing up. I'm glad that you were able to catch it too. I think that makes a big difference as well. So, one of the things that I think people have found out, and I hate to use Anthony Greeno as a subject in this, but it's one we can identify with. Social media can be used against you in court. And I think that, sadly for him, I think he was posting things on social media that may very well have led to them finding out where he was and being able to extradite him and all of that. So we have to be really careful about what we say on social media, how we say it, because law enforcement, as Maria told me yesterday, law enforcement's watching. They're watching what's going on here. They know what's happening in this case on social media platforms. They might not see every single thing, but they're watching, and they're very well aware. And so is Bridge Guy. I mean, we've talked about that in this channel before. I firmly believe that Bridge Guy is watching, and it knows exactly, and I think he wants to know exactly what's going on. And I think it's quite interesting that Tony has not spoken to his son since November, when they did the quote unquote raid, if that's what it truly was, on his home. And I would like to know why they were there. What were they looking for? I think I think you're right, CD. I definitely think that you hit the nail right on the head. I know my internet's kind of lagging here, but he says that the murder sheet is describing is the true horror of the way Anthony Schatz hunted children online, and more than likely hunted Libby and Abby, and the details will be horrific. And I believe that. So, thank you, Hoosier Girl. You're very sweet. But yeah, there's a lot of things that go into what's going on in this case, and none of us really know the ins and outs of everything. It'll be really interesting to see what happens over the next few weeks when the murder sheet drops their information and how law enforcement reacts to that. Because I think I want to know that, or I want to see that more than anything, is I want to see what law enforcement does to the reaction of them having this information. And what if anything, what if anything transpires from that. I'm hopeful. I go back to Michael Katz saying that the case would be solved middle of March. I don't know how he knew that, but here we are, the middle of March, and we may very well see this case solved sooner than we ever could have imagined. So I am too. I'm really excited to see those receipts drop as well and find out what may or may not be going on here. So, but yeah, it does surprise me that Tony has again stopped talking to his son. I don't know if it's manipulation on his part and he's manipulating him, or if this is because he firmly believes now that Kegan may be flipping on him or saying things to them, especially when he saw the HLN interview about what Kegan had to say about him. And Digital says, can they block inmates from having contact with certain individuals? Any chance they won't let TK in contact with Kegan to make him feel desperate and alone? I don't know if that is legal or not in Indiana, Digital. I mean, I'm sure they could put Kegan in some sort of, if he got into trouble or whatever, they could deny him. Hey, Lipsha, you have a wonderful week, okay? And thank you so much for dropping in. Always good to see you. I know when inmates get in trouble in jail, there's all sorts of penalties that can be laid against them. I don't know if denying them visitors without cause is something that they can do to get them to do something or tell them something. I don't know, because believe it or not, they have rights. Hello, Miss Melissa. Good to see you. So yeah, I don't know. That would be a good question for an attorney or somebody in law enforcement. CD, do you know the answer to that? You're in here, right? Can you answer that question for us? So the other thing is, I also believe that Kegan is afraid, I think, possibly of his father. But the dynamic there is really weird because he talks about having such a great relationship with his dad. And then and then he just kind of contradicts himself and says how he was so abused by him. So it's kind of like that. It reminds me of the syndrome of people who are kidnapped, where they end up siding with their captors. The name of it is escaping me. Okay, thank you, CD. I didn't think you could. So Digital, CD answered that question. He says you cannot block who they speak to. So no, this would be Tony doing this to him. Then it's not law enforcement doing it to Kegan. Thank you, Melissa. It's the Stockholm syndrome. You guys are wonderful. See, I wouldn't be able to have my show without you, because you can pull the stuff out of my brain that I can't remember. I think you're right, Unroyal. I do think Kegan is covering for his father. But I'm also thinking that he may be very afraid of his father. So I'm not quite sure yet, but yeah, I do think that. I think it's odd that they were living in the same house and a lot of the things that were going on, and how would you know who was doing what? I think that is one of the things that's so hard to get evidence in this crime to be able to take into court without a reasonable doubt. I think that there are a lot of, like they said, layers. It's a very complicated case. I think there is a CSAM aspect to this case that's huge. I have discussed this with Maria. I think that there may be somebody very prominent in the community that's at the head of that. There's just so many different things. And I just think that it's I don't know, hard to imagine what what may come out of this, but I think in the next couple of weeks we may very well have um hey Randy, you said told a lie about it. I had a photo sent to me of somebody claiming in your live that Libby was underneath the bridge. There was green drawn around the face, and it was a body underneath the bridge. So that is why I mentioned that. And I did not mention your name. I didn't mention anybody's name about these photos. So just so you know, I didn't say anything about you personally. I didn't talk about your channel or where it happened. So, anyway, we're moving on. I'm not going to talk about the photos anymore. We've already discussed it. The Dropbox is a problem for me. I think that there was definitely file sharing going on. I think law enforcement told us that obviously in the affidavit, and I would be really interested in who they were sharing photos with, or files with. I think that that's going to be huge when we find out who that is. And we just got a lot of information that's going to be coming our way in the next couple days, and then in another week. I think we need to all prepare ourselves. Thank you, Randy, for clearing that up. Everybody, Randy just said there was no body underneath the bridge. So thank you, Randy, for coming in and clearing that up. And I do apologize for putting that out there, but it was sent to me that way and presented to me that way. I was not in your live that night. So I wasn't on your channel that night. I just found that very, very disheartening if that had happened. So, but I do appreciate you coming in here and clearing that up very, very much. Anyway, so let's see. Hey, Tech Death, thank you. That was really kind of you to say. Anyway, there's, like I said, I think there's going to be a lot of more information. I'm hoping that when this stuff drops from the murder sheet, that we may hear something from law enforcement. I think that would be good if they'll comment on some of this stuff that's being said. But they may not. We need to set ourselves up for that they may just continue moving on with their case, and they may not talk about it. Yes, Randy, I knew that. Thank you so much for turning it in. I told you guys that morning when I was on your show that I was really glad that you guys tipped it in. I thought it was a good thing. And so I really appreciate you doing that. But yeah, we're going to have a lot of stuff, probably some unpleasant stuff to talk about. And, I'm going to have to do some research to see how to go about doing that. And because I want to be compassionate when covering it. I don't want to sensationalize any of this CSAM stuff. So I really want to, be careful, I guess, so to speak. So I think it's interesting that, like I said, that we don't have a really good timeline from Kegan about what he and Tony were up to that day. I think if I was going to be an alibi, I would actually say, well, we were here. We went to the pizza place for lunch that day, and we were there at 1:30, and we left there and we went to wherever at this time, and then we went here. I mean, that to me is how you give a timeline or an alibi, so to speak, of where you are. And that didn't happen. Hey Vince, welcome to my channel. Thank you so much for coming. Well, Digital, I'll tell you, Kegan says in the interview documents that his attorney was present, but his attorney also informed him that he was not representing him in the Delphi matter, that he was just going to sit there while they were talking about Delphi, which I found odd myself. I found all of that comment a little odd, but so I don't think there's a true answer on whether or not this particular attorney he has is actually defending him for anything that he might be charged for Delphi. He's not been charged for anything yet with Delphi either. So we need to make sure that we keep saying that he has not been charged with anything related to Delphi. As far as I'm aware, no one has. So yeah, health inspector, I know. He said he went to Delphi for a football game when he was in high school, and then later said in the same interview he didn't know how to get to Delphi, which I don't believe for 1 second. But I know some people said that, it's possible, but I don't believe it. If he ever had a reason to go to Lafayette, he goes right by Lafayette, or goes right by Delphi on his way to Lafayette on the Hoosier Heartland Highway. So it just doesn't make a whole lot of sense. I do agree with Maria, though. Her take was this could be a lot about money. And I do think that we'll find that out as well in this, that it could very well have a lot to do with money. Sadly to say, CSAM is a business and they have a lot of money tied up in it. Yeah, okay. So CD says because Kegan does have a public defender. I know that. He isn't charged with Delphi, so the attorney cannot help him on that. So that makes perfect sense. CD, thank you so much for being here and answering some of these questions for us. I really appreciate it. I mean, who's your girl? I mean, it's possible. It's certainly possible. I just kind of don't buy it, I guess. I don't know. I thought I heard something about he had a girlfriend somewhere in Delphi. I don't know. There's so many rumors. There's so much misinformation out there, which is another thing it's hard to wade through it all. But did the dog go back to Tony Klein? No, I don't think any of us know that at all. Heather, or health inspector, I'm sorry. I don't think any of us know the answers to that. And I said at the onset of talking about this topic, I really wish I knew what law enforcement was looking for that day and what led them to go to the house. It would be interesting to know. I think that there's going to be a lot of people arrested regarding this case, more than we think. So, and then the other thing I wanted to bring up about Tony is, you know, it says a lot about him if he is the guilty party in this, and he's letting his son take the fall for it right now by sitting in jail. I think that just says a whole lot about him. I mean, he's going to let his son sit in jail and maybe take the fall for all of this. That is not a great father in my opinion. Let's see. Yeah, that's true. Oh, I'm sure he does, Unroyal. I'm sure he knows that. Unroyal says Tony knows that he has Kegan under control. You know, he learned how to control his son when he was a little boy by scaring him and abusing him both emotionally and physically, it sounds like. So there's no doubt to me that he has him under his control. So I wanted to ask everybody tonight, kind of just I'm just going to kind of throw this out here, just to kind of see, you know, there's 88 people watching right now. So everybody who thinks that Tony and Kegan Kline are absolutely 100% involved in the Delphi murders, will you drop a 1 in the chat? And if you think that they are not going to be anywhere related to this at all, will you drop a 2? I'm just curious as to where everybody's thinking right now. So I'll try and catch them. I'll try to add them as you guys are dropping them so we can see. And Royal, you definitely think so, don't you? So let's see. Right now, the 1s are beating out the 2s. We've got 1, 2, and like, let's see, 16 1s, 17. Let's see. I also believe it, so I'm going to say a 1. AJ, that's cute. Yeah, so it pretty much looks like my audience right now is pretty much in agreement that that the Kleins are definitely involved in the murders of Abby and Libby. So I think that that's what law enforcement is probably telling us with everything that we've heard so far. Hey, Alicia, it's good to see you as always. I hope you're doing well. Robert on the lane, good to see you. He's not 100%, but about 80% maybe. Well, that's good. I think we could still give you a 1 for that. even if it's not 100%, you're more leaning that direction than you are the other way. I really think that there's a reason why they took the height and weight off. And I think it's because everybody was so focused on it. They were so focused on it. It can't be this person. It can't be them because of this. And I think that's why it's gone. Let's see. So, you know, the whole catfishing, you know, that whole scenario about if the girls were catfished or were they stalked, I'm still kind of hung up on that for some reason. I definitely think that it's more a chance of both actually I definitely think that Libby was talking to somebody about that Anthony Shots profile at school. There's just something to me that tells me that she had told somebody about it, that she was talking to them. I can't get that out of my mind. I just think that young girls do that. They talk to each other. Let's see. So Robert on the Lane says, I always saw him as a big guy. I'm 5'10", 200 pounds, and he looked bigger than me. Plus the pictures are mostly zoomed in. So, hey, Debbie. Don't know if you know, Debbie, but they took the height and weight off of the wanted poster. So I don't think that that's going to be an issue. And Jamie says, I agree, Miss Kristen, that the police are definitely lurking these streams. I kind of thought that, but when they removed the height and weight, it made me 100% believe. Well, I think they could have done that a long time ago too, Jamie, because people have been hung up on that height and weight for a very long time. And not just with these two POIs, but with other people. So, I just think that I'm not sure what that all means, but it definitely means something, because they wouldn't have done it otherwise. Let's see here. All right, so let's take this off. I just wanted to go over, I wanted to let you guys know that I am going to start covering 2 other cases. And the other case, one of the cases that I'm going to be covering is the Kristen Smart case. This case is kind of, I don't want to say near and dear to me, but because that sounds weird, but I followed Kristen's case since she went missing. And I just feel like now's the time for me to start talking about it, because her trial begins next month. And for those of you that aren't aware, hey Snail, welcome to the chat. If you're not aware of Kristen Smart, in the spring of 1996, Kristen was 19 years old, and she was a student at the San Luis Obispo, California. Hold on a second. My computer is not working for me. University, and she at Cal Poly, and she was a freshman. It was in May. It was the last weekend before everybody went home for the summer, and she went missing. She went to a party that night with a friend, and then they decided she wanted to go to a different party, and the friend didn't want to go. She wanted to go back to the dorms. So she left her keys, and that friend left her. And Kristen went on and walked and ended up at this other party. And at that party, she was dancing and drinking, and everybody that saw her or talked to her said that she seemed to be kind of out of it. Not so much drunk, but like really out of it. And she was walked home by 3 people two people, one was a female and two guys. And the female was one of the last ones to leave her. And she left her with this other guy who lived in the dorm directly across from Kristen's. And he was supposed to make sure that she made it home. Well, she never made it. And she was never seen again, ever. And they've never been able to find her remains to this day. But on April 13th of 2021, after 25 years of investigating, the authorities announced that Ruben Flores, age 80, and his son, Paul Flores, 44, had been arrested in connection with her disappearance. And Paul Flores was the boy who was supposed to walk her home and get her safely home to her dorm that night. And authorities had always looked at Paul. No, who's your girl? I'm talking about Kristin Smart from California, 1996, Cal Poly University. And Paul was supposed to get her home safely. And authorities looked at him early on and said that they thought that he had something to do with her disappearance. It took them 3.5, almost 4 weeks before they brought in dogs to search his room. And by this time, the dorm rooms had all been cleaned because the students had all moved out. His dorm room had been completely cleaned, but the dogs hit on blood in his apartment, both on the mattress and along the wall. And authorities believe that he took her to his room to rape her. And during the assault, he killed her. Now, that's what they're claiming. And obviously, I want her to have justice. If you guys are not aware of her case, the best way to get aware of it is to go listen to Chris Lambert, who is a podcaster who did a podcast on her story, and it's called Your Own Backyard. And you can get it anywhere that you get your podcasts or listen to them. He also has his own website for it, and you can listen to it there. It is amazing. This guy he's a musician. He was a producer of music. He did a lot of technical stuff with music, but he also played music. And he was a little boy when Kristen went missing. He lived real close to where she went missing. And it always bothered him. And the billboards are still up for Kristen in that area for her missing posters. So he just felt that he needed to get her story out there and for the family. And so he started this podcast. And not only did he do that, but he started investigating himself. He started looking people up, friends of Paul Flores from high school, people who knew him, worked with him. And he started interviewing all of these people, and he was able to uncover new evidence in the case. And by doing so, law enforcement in 2020 and 2019 and 2020 got really interested in Chris's podcast. And they were like, he started talking to them, and he would say, "This is my next episode. Do you want me to hold it? Do you want me to let it go? Is there anything that you want me to not say or whatever?" Because he didn't want to damage the case in any way or hurt it. And they got to have a really good rapport. And when they announced the arrest of these two men last year, authorities actually gave him credit for helping them. Thank you, AJ, for putting it up in the chat. That's so wonderful. But yeah, he actually gave him wonderful praise for everything that he did. And last year they did I believe it was in February, they took a machine into Paul's dad's backyard where they thought they had buried Kristen's body. And they used the radar, the sonar radar that can go under the ground, ground penetrating radar. And they were able to pinpoint that there was a body buried there. There seemed to be, and there was also blood that they were able to retrieve from the ground. So they do believe that she was murdered and that her body had been probably buried there for a very long time, and then it had recently been moved. And sadly, they still do not have Kristen's body. They still do not know where she is. And I think that is so sad from the family. But yeah, I'm going to be covering her case. I want to cover the trial and how things move forward with that. Kristen was a very smart young woman. She had her whole life ahead of her. She had so many dreams that she wanted to do in life, and that was all snatched from her by this predator who continued to predate on people and on young women even after he was accused of her disappearance. He moved to Southern California and continued to assault women and do all kinds of horrible things and drug them. His modus operandi was to drug women by putting stuff in their drinks when he would meet them at bars and stuff or at parties. So that's the one case that I will be covering. And then the other case that I'm going to cover after I get Kristen's going will be Kendrick Johnson. Another case that I was very aware of when it was going on, when it happened. And there's been a lot of movement in his case as well. KJ, as he's known by his family, on January 10th of 2013, he was a Black 17-year-old junior at Lowndes High School in Valdosta, Georgia. He didn't come home from school that day, and he played football for the high school. He was a top athlete, and everyone loved him and talked highly of him. But he didn't come home from school on the 10th of January, and his mom and dad became extremely, extremely worried about him. And the next day, he was found dead at school in the gym. His body was rolled up in a wrestling mat that was standing upright in a corner of the school, and his sock-covered feet were sticking out of the top of it. And authorities ruled that his death was an accident, and Kendrick's family said absolutely no way was his death an accident. So they demanded a second independent autopsy. The pathologist said not only determined that the cause of death was from a non-accidental blunt force trauma, but also he discovered that the organs inside of the body were missing. One of the things that they do when they do autopsies, they take the organs out and they weigh them and they look at them, and sometimes they take pieces of them and for forensic testing, and then they take all the organs and they put them back into a bag and put them in the body cavity and sew them up. And when they did the second autopsy, yes, Unroyal, his body parts were missing. They were not in the body cavity. But besides all of that, up to this very day today, there's been multiple investigations, lawsuits, autopsies, to determine if it was an accident or a murder. And it's still not been truly justice deserved or justice received. There is a new documentary that's out on Netflix called Finding Kendrick Johnson, and that is really, really good. No, Unroyal, when they did the second autopsy, So it's a really sad story. The Justice Department has gotten involved with this case because Valdosta is very well known for being a it's a southern state, it's a southern city in Georgia, and it's known for its racism and for its history of there has a very deep history of racism. So it's something that's interesting. It's sad. I just feel like that they didn't fully investigate this case the way they should. The two boys or brothers that they think are involved in this, their father is an FBI agent. And so I think that there's a lot more going on here than meets the eye. And I feel really bad for that. So I really want to cover that case. So I hope that you may follow that one with me. I know there's a lot of people out there that are interested in KJ's case. It's extremely sad. Just I can't imagine anybody thinking that a junior in high school is going to fall inside a gym mat and suffocate. To me, it just doesn't make any sense at all. But anyway, well, I'm going to end my live tonight, you guys. You guys have all been really wonderful. And I thank you so much for spending time with me again. And I hope that the news that we get regarding Abby and Libby in the next couple weeks really helps to shed more light on what may be going on in this case. That's my hope. And I hope that you all have a good week. And yes, exactly, Digital. The video camera footage from the gym, there's missing footage. It was tampered with. But yeah, you guys all have a good week. And I look forward to talking to you guys all again. My next live will probably not be on Tuesday. I'm probably going live again on Wednesday, just so you guys know. But anyway, I look forward to talking to you all again. Thank you so much for coming.